Hello and welcome to Almost 30 Podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's Lindsay Simsick, and this is my best friend, Crystal Williams.
What's up, y'all? We're so glad to be with you. We know there's a lot of other pods you could listen to, so your time and attention to Almost 30 always feels so good. We're so grateful to have been with you for a long time. If you're an OG, and if you're new, welcome to our lives, our community. We are a podcast of spirituality and wellness. We started when we were in our 20s, and now we're in our 30s, but we're still rocking almost 30. Everyone always freaks out about that. They're like, what are you going to do? Or what does it mean when you're in your 30s? I'm like, hey, man, let us worry about it. Do your thing.
We're the experts here.
Honestly.
It gets better. Mm-hmm. It gets more clear. I felt like my 20s, and I didn't even know it at the time, but what I realize now is that my 20s were such a fog. But I think they're supposed to be a little foggy, a little like, what should I be doing? What's next? Like, it is kind of that time in a lot of ways, but at the time you think you need to have everything really, really clear.
I think that's a perception, when we're children, we perceive that our parents have all the answers as a way to keep us safe, to think that they can be trusted, they know what they're doing. Then you get older and you're like, whoa, they had no idea what they were doing. In fact, they may have not known so much that they caused me trauma. And then I think I had this perception too, that at points in my life when I look back, that I was more clear on what I was doing, but I don't think I've ever felt clear. I feel good right now in my life, but I don't think I would say I've ever felt clear about where my life is going.
Mm-mm. And that's what I've realized is like kind of the fun and joy of life. At least I think for some people, it feels really good to have like the path laid out for the most part. I think that pertains mostly to your career because so many other things are unpredictable. But I think for me, it's been so much about realizing that like the unknown of my life is actually like what I live for and what keeps things really exciting and keeps me growing and keeps me connected to my life, because I don't feel connected to my life when I know what's going to happen even like on a weekly basis. So.
Totally. That's when we kind of go unconscious, to be honest. Mm-hmm. It's like when we have the routine or the mundane or like the things that we continue to do, the monotony of life sort of makes us slip into sometimes like an unconsciousness where you're just kind of going through the motions. And as humans, people don't love the feeling of going through the motions. People love to feel the aliveness of life, like the co-creation of life, the experience of life. But I think approaching life more as the adventure has been such a shift for me in my perspective, and just being like, whoa, what is the next part of this adventure? And I was thinking about this today in the shower, how I think there's the belief that life is a game. There's like the thought of life being a game. And I like to see it as an adventure more than a game, because I think when we see it as a game, it's almost like you do one thing happens, and there's this kind of like matrixy belief that we have control of everything. There's like a dehumanization of things. There's like I don't know. It's just a way of approaching things where it's like you don't see that. Yeah, depersonalization. You don't see people as people. You kind of just see like it's a game that you have to win and you have to get to the next level. But when it's a journey, you're kind of like, I don't know where we're going. I don't know what we're doing, but I'm here for the experience of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think when I think of a game, it's like I'm winning or I'm losing the game. And so I think that's why a lot of people get tripped up in their 20s, because they feel like they're losing if, they haven't found the career that they're going to have for the rest of their life. They haven't found their person, or, fill in the blank. I think, that can make a lot of people really anxious and potentially depressed, where they feel like I'm not winning compared to other people, what I think or where I think I should be. So yeah, I completely agree. Who coined life as a game?
That's a great question.
Some dude in finance.
Some dude. I wonder if that's like, yeah, there's some type of mentality around that where like, and that's kind of like I don't know. Yeah. I wonder who did that. Life is a game. It's kind of matrixy. Maybe it's from the Matrix or some type of mentality. There is an energetic of life is a game. And I just, sure. It seems too like you're always kind of like juking and jiving to win. And like, yeah, I just am like, no.
Yeah, completely. Life is a game. Let's play it. Maybe they just wanted a good quote.
That's true. Life is a game. Let's play it. I think that's a good one. Maybe it's like Neville Goddard or I don't know, one of those OGs where it's helpful to see that and believe that you're a co-creator of your life so you can do something and something can happen and you're kind of engaging with life. I think engaging with life and that dialogue is really beautiful, but to think that it's just like everyone's like a pawn where you're like every person, you're like NPC, not real thing, you know, and you're like main character energy. I don't even know. Main character energy is so toxic.
I feel like social media has made a lot of main characters.
What do you mean? It's my whole thing.
Are you?
And I'm one of them.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we all kind of have experienced that where it becomes about like me.
Yes.
How do I like, if a platform is important to people, which I think it has been to us in different ways, it's like inevitably in our case, we are the platform,
Yes.
right? We have things that we talk about, things we believe, but like we are the center. And so while I think I'm proud of that, you're proud of that, there is this like weird thing sometimes where I step out of it. I'm like, dude, this is very interesting.
Very, very interesting.
Can I zip off the suit and just chill?
I've kind of come to a relationship with it now where I really enjoy it. Like I feel like social media in dating at the beginning, I was so nervous about how men would perceive me because of what I do and because of the perception that men have of social media people, or I don't know what that is. You know, it's something I can't control, and now I've just been like doubling down. I'm like, whatever, dude, whatever this person that I'm dating or whatever is going to think about me, it's like, it's going to come out eventually. So instead of hiding it, I'm just like, here you are.
Well, yeah, I think if we're talking about dating, it's like being yourself as much as possible so that the person that just loves, appreciates, respects all of you or will like gets to be able to see you.
Yes.
You know, like it's kind of like lifting up out of like the little mask or facade that a lot of people have when they're dating. It's just being like, no, like see as much of me as possible so that like I have the best chance of connecting with the one that will appreciate and connect with that.
It's almost like a good filter, to be honest, because it's like, you know, obviously social media isn't all of me, but it's a part of me and it's an expression of me. So to love all of me, you have to love that certain expression of me, even if it's changing or even if it's evolving. But yeah, it's just such a weird thing. I've been thinking about lately how a lot of conversations are sort of funneling to social media. Like I think it's just such a conversation that people have all the time, whether it's about someone's perception of what someone else is doing online, whether it's about social media in general, whether it's about something they learned about. It's like we're all sort of just moving to talking about social media often, very often. And it's very interesting.
Talking about things on social media, like pretty exclusively. Yeah.
Maybe it's my world, you know, to be honest. It's like I have to be honest about that because I do have a world where social media is most of people's businesses. It's how they market. It's how they live their life. So that could be a thing. But yeah, it's like how I'm perceived. How are people perceived? Did you see them doing this? Are they doing that? Like I learned about this. It's just kind of always in the zeitgeist.
Yeah. If I think about people who it's not like their everyday, it's not their business, I think social media still is a part of their life just as much, but in a more like private sense. So they're on social media, they're consuming social media even more.
Totally. 100%. Yeah.
Like I feel like I don't consume as much. Yeah. Like I feel like other people consume more than me, but they don't, it's not their job.
I totally agree. I don't.
Yeah.
I have everyone muted. I've talked about this. I talked about this at the mastermind in London. I have every single person muted. I look at people on like a monthly basis. I look at my friends, like my however many friends, just engage, like, kind of send them love. And that's pretty much it. It just doesn't. And then I'm deeply with people in person. Like everyone that matters, I'm deeply with them in person. I don't need to be following them on social media every second of every day to feel connected or close to them. That's like a false sense of connection. And that's just not how I roll. So, but yeah, I think we're all kind of impacted by it. But I'm excited today for this interview. So Lisa Bilyeu came on Almost 30. We got to hang. It was really recent. It was so great. She came into the office. She brought 2 huge bags of Quest bars, like the crisps, the chips. Like I was having like a moment. I was like, girl, I don't think you understand. I'll never forget where I was, what I was doing the first time I had a Quest bar. My ex brought over, he was visiting me when I was living in Chicago and was like, yeah, there's this amazing protein bar. It's a brownie flavor. You want to try it? And I was like, yo, my brain cells altered in that moment. And I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I honestly would eat like multiple Quest bars a day. It was kind of an addiction.
I remember when I found Quest bars, I was living in my studio apartment in Venice, California, and with like this weird linoleum floor. It was a vibe. And I would microwave my cookie dough Quest bar as my dessert every night.
Uh-huh. With Arctic Zero?
With Arctic Zero? No, I didn't get into Arctic Zero though.
You need to get on my level with Arctic Zero.
Unhealthy
150 calories for a pint. I was like living, no nutritional value, living.
Yeah, those were the days. But like, what a crazy empire.
I know.
Like, it's fascinating.
I think it was in 5 years they went to $1 billion. And she said, like, we talked about this. She was like, yeah, it was like cultural. And it's true. Like Quest was cultural. It was like very much a time when culture was shifting to focusing on working out, focusing on nutrition. I think there hadn't been that workout culture, that workout community, the fitness, everyone was like watching bodybuilding YouTubers. Like there was just weird fitness movement that sort of picked up, and they were kind of the leader in low sugar, high protein as like the standard and as like the beginning. Cause I think before it was more so Quests and Kind bars, but so it's kind of really bringing protein to the forefront and having them taste amazing. Like the peanut butter jelly one, like all these different flavors. But it was fascinating to talk to her because she was a housewife for 8 years before they started Quest. She was thinking that would be her path and trajectory, and then switched obviously to really helping to build Quest in a major way. And during our conversation, I just really appreciate, as like, especially someone that's like very Capricorn in my chart, like she's very realistic and in reality about the advice that she shares. So as an example, it's like, when they talk about her and her husband in relationships, we talked a lot about relationships because for 2 people that are incredibly high performing, growth minded, like very busy, but want a big life, like how do you manage that? Like how do you have that relationship? And one of the things that they do is just having radical honesty, like giving each other permission to say how they feel without fear that they're going to be punished for it. And a lot of times in relationships, you know, people can say, be honest with me. But then if someone is honest with you, then you punish them because it hurts your feelings and you take it personally and you feel like it's an attack on you. In Conscious Loving by Gay Hendricks, they talk about telling the truth, telling micro truths. So really that like permission, even if it's like, hey, do you like my shirt? And they're like, no, I actually don't. It's like making that okay. And I love the honesty piece because it helps people be 2 individuals. I think oftentimes in relationship, when we kind of keep people from being honest with each other, we're making them become you, where it's like, you can't think differently than me. If I like my shirt, you have to like my shirt. If I want this thing, you have to like this thing. And that honesty really allows people to keep polarity. So if people want to keep polarity in relationships, have each other be honest about what you want, about where you're going, about dinner, about friends, about relationships, about goals, so that you can maintain that differentiator in who you are and kind of that friction between each other.
Yeah. And it clears like the field. Like I feel like I had kind of a hard time being super honest in any of my relationships. And it wasn't out of like deceit. It was more so like, I just wanted to be liked and I wanted things to feel smooth and easy. And I actually quickly realized that within relationships that actually matter, relationships that are conscious and connected and worth it, that being kind of like easy going and not being totally honest really harmed the relationship. So I learned that quickly with you. I learned that quickly with Sean, like, and it's been so freeing. And sometimes I still have to have a pep talk with myself if I want to say something honest, because I have to talk to the part of myself or tend to the part of myself that feels like I'm going to hurt or disturb or make the other person feel a type of way that is going to like kind of mess up our dynamic. And I have no proof of that. I have zero proof of that. So where is that coming from? That's coming from an experience that I might have had as a kid, maybe with my parents when I was honest, or maybe with like a friend when I was a teenager and I was honest. So much of that type of work, yes, is practicing the honesty, but it's also been to like tend to that part of myself that still wants to hold back sometimes.
Of course. Yeah, so true and so powerful. I think most of us have not seen relationships with honesty and healthy honesty. It was either honesty that was abusive or honesty that was hurtful or honesty that was like weaponized, so it's like someone being cruel was the association with honesty. I kind of saw honesty as something that was cruel or something that was unconscious. So how can we be conscious about that honesty? And then even on the parts thing, she talks about turning like your inner voice, that inner critic, she called it her inner bitch before, her inner bitch into her BFF. And how she did that was really like, okay, so this part of her that was like, you're not good enough. Everyone makes fun of you for how you look. Everyone makes fun of you for these things, whatever that part of her was saying. She's like, I actually had a moment and sat down and listened to that voice, listened to what she had to say. And I used that information that she shared with me to sort of support myself in being more prepared. So if that part of her was like, you're dumb and no one listens to you. Okay, I'm hearing that voice. And how can I really prepare so that I know that I'm going to feel good about how I show up? Or that part of her would say like, you're not enough. Okay, like how can I support myself today in feeling like I'm enough for this now moment? And I think when we can really see that inner critic, and this is why I love IFS work so much, it's like, how can we look at the parts of us that are shameful, guilty, that annoy us or bother us, and really see the wisdom that they have? Because so often those parts are really trying to keep us safe. They're trying to support us, and they really have so much that we can really glean from if we just listen to them kindly and separate ourselves from them. Because a lot of times we're listening to them and we're like listening to them unconsciously, and that's so key. So she became conscious of that voice and was like, oh, there's a voice that's saying that. That voice is not me. I'm going to consciously listen to that. But if we have that running as like thinking it's us, then that's when it's really harmful.
Yeah. And I think I was thinking about the tone of the inner voice, like just how, I don't know if we make the tone or if it makes the
Sometimes
tone.
Sometimes it's our parents. But sometimes we hear the tone of our parents. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Like it's the tone of the voice. Sometimes I'll say that to Sean, like, it's your tone, but it's like that tone of the inner voice. If we kind of stripped away that tone, to your point, there is some information there that we can work with, but we have that like kind of the energetic residue of that, whoever voice that is, that really is the feeling that sits with us.
100%. Yeah. I love that. And, we talked a lot about relationship stuff, like how to have healthy, successful relationships. Like I loved that. Like I thought her insights were super actionable, like really good. And then we also talked about the new chapter in her book. So the book is Radical Confidence. It came out last year, but the paperback version is now out. And in it, she added a chapter on a toxic relationship that she went through before she met her husband, Tom Bilyeu. And she talked about how that was so important to building her confidence, because it was something that just completely eroded her confidence, and how much toxic relationships can really erode your confidence. And it is interesting because, if I work with anybody or if we meet anybody, like, and I had a session with someone recently where I was like, we can do all the things here and I can say everything, but if you are in that toxic petri dish and you are living in that environment with someone that is abusive, it's really hard to kind of go outside in. You really have to start at the root with the things that are causing all of the issues of unworthiness, all of the issues that you're having in your life sort of stem there. So I thought that was a really powerful addition, because I think most of us have been in toxic relationships at some point in time in our life, and it really, really changes how you see yourself.
Oh yeah. Isn't it wild how you can I've had friends who I don't think I've been in a uber toxic relationship in my life. I've had toxic elements,
Yeah.
but I've had friends that have been in like really toxic relationships, and how quickly they deteriorate, you know, their spirit, their confidence, their trust in themselves, their presence in their life, their connection to their friends. Like it's really kind of wild what a romantic like the impact a romantic relationship has, whether it is for good or for bad. Not to say that like people shouldn't open their hearts and be in relationship, but yeah, when it's toxic, it can really take a toll.
So much so. Yeah. So I think that section will be relatable for people. So we talk a little bit about that in her story, which was really, really beautiful. Lisa has a YouTube channel and podcast, Women of Impact. The book is radicalconfidence.com for you to check it out. You can pre-order the copy now. I have it. It was super actionable and insightful. And she's on Instagram at Lisa Bilyeu. And she is one of the founders of Quest Nutrition, the company that we talked about earlier that has protein bars and protein products that went to $1 billion in about 5 years. So she's done really big things in her life. And now her goal is to help women all over the world. And she does that through her content.
Amazing. Can't wait for you all to listen to this one. We have a library of over 650 episodes for you over the last almost 8 years here. So if this episode resonates, send it to a friend. We also have a bunch for you to listen to in our library. Be sure to subscribe to Almost 30 anywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as our clips show. So we have the morning microdose, which is really a way for you to get a dose of inspiration first thing in the morning. Instead of looking at your phone, going to the email, doing all the things, just flip on an episode of Morning Microdose. It's out 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. This is 5 to 15 minutes at the best of the best of Almost 30. And I think you'll love it.
Can't wait. All right. Love you guys. Thank you so much, Lisa, for coming in. It was such a pleasure to meet you. I love you very much. And we will see you on the next one. So enjoy this one.
It's important to me that the supplements I take are of the highest quality. And that's why for the last 4 years, I've been drinking AG1. I even got my husband on it. He's been drinking it for 2 years. He was the other day, he's like, did you order more AG1? I was like, yes, it's on subscription. It is coming in a few days. The AG1 brand is just a favorite of ours. They are relentless about testing to set the standard for purity and potency with their product. They're honestly constantly searching for how to do things better at 52 iterations of their formula and counting. Their team is always trying to find better ways to source, test, and aim to find the best quality ingredients available. This product is researched, developed by an in-house team of scientists, doctors, and nutritionists with decades of experience in their respective fields. So many people have asked me if AG1 is actually the real deal. I probably get that question once a week. Should I get it? Like, does it actually work? And trust me, there's a reason why I've been drinking it for so long. Quality for AG1 isn't just a buzzword. It's a commitment backed by expert-led scientific research, high-quality ingredients, industry-leading manufacturing, and rigorous testing. At each step of the process, AG1 goes above and beyond industry standards. Now, let me just tell you how easy this is. 1 scoop a day, 1 scoop in water. You can even put it in your smoothie, whatever you fancy. I put it in water. It's the first thing I drink in the morning, and it's delicious. Mix it up. Take it on down. It's incredible. I know there are a million different pills out there and capsules to keep track of. Just 1 scoop of AG1 mixed in water every day. You're going to cover your nutritional bases and set yourself up for success in just literally like 60 seconds. It has prebiotics, probiotics, digestive enzymes for gut support, rhodiola and B vitamins for energy support. It has folate, magnesium, ashwagandha for stress support, vitamin C and zinc to support immune health, and more. Okay, so get to it. We've partnered with AG1 for so long because they make such a high quality product that I genuinely look forward to drinking every day. So if you want to replace your multivitamin and more with AG1, try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first subscription at drinkag1.com/almost30. That's drinkag1.com/almost30. Check it out. Okay, we are approaching summer. summer. I mean, are we ready or are we ready? I wanted to share some supplements I'm taking for a healthy, well, fabulous summer. First is Symbiotica's vitamin C. Symbiotica is my go-to supplement brand for clean, innovative formulas. I love them because not only do I trust this brand, but also so many of their supplements come in liposomal form, which is like a liquid, and they taste really yummy, making taking these supplements super, super easy. I don't know if you're like me, but like taking a ton of pills is not my idea of fun. So this is the best alternative. Also, your body absorbs it better. So I take the vitamin C. Not only does it enhance my skin, but it also boosts my immunity. I want my skin looking real good this summer. Feeling good, just so you know, starts from the inside out. So we got to take care of the insides. The best part about Symbiotica's products, they don't contain any seed oils, preservatives, or toxins. Other supplements from Symbiotica I am taking this summer. Though I'm going to be in the sun a little bit more, I am taking a vitamin D supplement, vitamin D3K2 from Symbiotica. And this one I take year round. It is incredible for immunity, for my mood, and more. I love the taste. It's like this citrusy taste. It's so yummy. I'm also taking the magnesium L-threonate. This is an innovative form of magnesium that is able to cross the blood-brain barrier. It supports your brain health, mood, immune system function, and overall well-being. So if you're looking for a really good magnesium supplement, magnesium L-threonate from Symbiotica, and it's so yummy. It's like this vanilla cream flavor. I've been known to drizzle it on my oatmeal. That is right. You can drizzle it on anything you want. So again, I'm taking the vitamin C, I'm taking the vitamin D3K2, the magnesium L-threonate, to name a few. If you want to get beautiful glowing skin, which I know you do, and boost your immunity, try that vitamin C, okay? You can take up to 20% off site-wide with our code ALMOST30. Just go to symbiotica.com and use the code ALMOST30 for 20% off site-wide. That's CYMBIOTIKA.com. Use the code ALMOST30 for 20% off site-wide.
I'm so excited to have you. It's such a long time coming. I feel like your podcast and just your presence has been so inspiring for me and so many women in our community. You are someone that just lives so boldly and authentically and truthfully. And obviously, Quest has been a huge part of my life since I was 2012, probably, maybe even before. But I'm really excited to talk about so many different things with you today, because I see you as someone that's so bold, so confident, so no bullshit, but also approaches life with like grace and love and creativity. And I wanted to talk about confidence a little bit with you, because I see you as someone that's so confident, but I know that sometimes we can waver and sometimes we can not feel as confident. What has been your journey with confidence? Like, do you feel like that was a through line of your whole life where you always felt confident and you feel like now you want to teach it? Or what was your journey to being this person that we see today?
Yeah, it's funny because even who you see today is still extremely insecure. And so people think that just because you show up, it means that you have the confidence. And that was really why I actually lent in more to talk about confidence, because there's a massive misconception. And the truth is that the confidence part is the byproduct of taking action. You have to take action first. You have to fall. You have to fail. You have to keep getting back up. You have to keep rinsing and repeating. And then as you keep doing that over time, you become competent. And it's the competence that then leads you to having the confidence. And so for me, any area of my life that I even tackle, anything that I try, I go, okay, I'm very insecure. I'm not equipped. I don't have the skill sets that it takes right now for me to do this well. But I'm willing to take a chance and try and practice until I get good. And the problem with confidence, I think, has misled so many people. They think you need that at the beginning. And so people put their lives on pause because they think, I'm going to do that when I have the confidence. Now, the question is, what if the confidence never comes? Are you okay with the fact that you actually don't have that dream or that goal?
With confidence, I guess, what do you think? So for some people, is it them not having confidence, or is it they're not driven enough? Because like, what is that balance of being motivated? You know, because sometimes motivation will like get you through the feelings of insecurity.
Yeah, that's such a fascinating question. I think that you have to be driven, but you also have to understand what you're being driven towards.
Yeah.
And so when you tie that to an emotional thing, when you are driven and you keep failing, how on earth do you keep improving to get to the confidence part? And to me, that is really about failing, being okay to fail, being okay to try 1,000 things, to literally in public to fail, be potentially even humiliated, have the shame, like all of that comes with it. And then you just keep brushing it off in order to keep going. But you have to be resilient. You have to just keep going. Now, maybe there are people in this world that were born with confidence. Maybe there's a genetic string there. I never had that. And so growing up where I was completely insecure, I still have a negative voice that tells me all the time I'm no good. And so how do you, like, drive in and of itself won't get you over that insecurity. So you have to keep practicing. And so the motivation part is, why do you keep showing up? And it was Mother Teresa that said, not everyone will fight for the masses, but everyone will fight for the one. So who are you fighting for every day when you're driven, when you need that motivation, when you don't feel good enough? Who are you thinking about? And it has to be even beyond yourself.
Yeah.
And so for me, in building Quest, I was brought up with a mum that was borderline anorexic. For years and years and years, I saw her starve herself in order to be attractive, in order to feel good about herself. Then, as an adult, I saw her go from that to morbidly obese. So you can imagine, we're building Quest. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I literally get thrust into a company that grows at 57,000%, that goes from 0 to $1 billion in 5 years, just to give the context. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'd been a stay-at-home wife for 8 years. I wasn't qualified. So every time Quest grows and I have a hurdle, I have something I have to face, the old Lisa, who was insecure, that didn't have the confidence, would just stop. Stroke my ego, don't attack it, because then you feel better about yourself by not failing. But the Lisa that was staring it in the eyes, where the company's growing and I've got a choice, do I show up today and help my mum, or do I not show up today and not help my mum? That becomes really real. So when it comes to motivation, you've got to know the driving force for yourself in order to propel you forward. And I've always found it's a person that you need to think of, because that really grounds you into the emotion of the impact that you're having.
And being motivated by that emotion and that feeling.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it's so interesting. You were talking about before, it's like you could risk being humiliated. And I've been talking about this lately with my friends, like, to be successful is, so many times I've been so embarrassed, especially in what we do when you're public. Like you just have to do so many different things that are embarrassing if you're going to be successful as an athlete or as an entertainer, or even in like the corporate world. You're going to have to fail at presentations. You're going to have to fail at things. Like there's such a way of being where we think that to be successful, you just have to be successful along the journey. And it's actually about looking stupid and learning along the process. And you mentioned the voice in your head, you know, that negative voice. And I think so many women struggle with that, the voice in their head, the inner critic, that perfectionist part of us. How do you work with that voice?
Yeah, so I can swear on this podcast.
What do you see?
Can I swear on this podcast?
Yes.
Okay.
Let it rip. You're like, that voice wants to talk.
That voice is the bitch in my head.
Yes.
Like, that's the truth. And I used to call her a bitch, and I was like, she's always getting in my way. And what I realized was, okay, I'm very goal-oriented. Set your goal. Now, on the path to the goal, what happens, and does it serve you, yes or no? If it serves you, lean towards it. If it doesn't serve you, move away from it. And so I realized the negative voice in my head wasn't serving me. And so I'm like, this is something that's actually stopping me in my tracks. Okay, how do I make this serve me? What if I listen to her? You know that friend, like a real friend that comes to you and tells you the hard thing? If it's a real friend and you really trust her, she's telling you that because she actually is there to protect you.
Yep.
She really cares about you. Okay, so what if I actually pivot and go, this bitch in my head is now my BFF. What would it look like if it was my BFF talking to me? You listen with compassion. So I sat there and said, all right, bitch in my head, let it rip. What's wrong? So let's take, for instance, it was the first time I was going to step in front of the camera. I start my show. I didn't want to do video. I was so petrified. I was like, I don't want to get in front of the camera. Why would I ever do that? I only got mocked as a teenager for my looks. So for me to actively put myself in front of a camera so people can mock me didn't make sense to me. But my husband pulls me aside and he's like, babe, you told me that your mission is to help women. I said, it is. And he goes, right now you're not acting in accordance.
Oh.
So in that moment, I had to pause and say, okay, what's more important, my mission or my ego? And once I chose my mission, I was allowed to like listen to that ego, let her speak, but not let her stop me. So once I start to let her speak, I start to listen. She's telling me, hey, Lisa, you're squeaky, right? These are the things that my negative bitch is telling me. You're squeaky. All right. I'm not going to change my voice. Like, I am who I am. I can't change it. I could change it actually like Amanda Holmes. Not Amanda Holmes. Elizabeth Holmes.
Elizabeth Holmes.
Wrong person.
Yeah, she's like, hello.
Yes, Elizabeth Holmes. But I stand for being authentic.
Yeah.
So that didn't make sense to me. Okay, so you're just going to have to embrace, Lisa, because you just said that your mission is more important than your ego. You're going to have to embrace that some people won't like your squeaky voice. Got it. Now I'm prepared. Lisa, you don't know how to start an interview, right? You have no idea. Imposter syndrome. You have no idea what you're doing. You don't know how to interview. All right. What are the things that I can do? Maybe she's right. Maybe I actually don't know how to interview. Maybe I don't know how to start an interview. Maybe I don't know how to end. Great. Thank you for giving me the advance notice so I can prepare. So I then went in with a game plan of how I make sure that I start an interview. So I would pre-write my interviews and then how I would end my interviews. And so I came up with a catchphrase that allowed my nervousness to not get petrified and stop talking, right? Because it's like, I don't know what to say.
Totally.
Come up with a catchphrase. So I came up with, be the hero of your own life. So that became my go-to quote that when the guest stops, instead of feeling that adrenaline rush of, oh shit, I don't know how to wrap the interview, I'm like, Lisa, just go to your quote. But even my end, I didn't remember it because I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I wrote it on the whiteboard, be the hero of your own life. I put it under my A camera. And every time I would do my interview and then turn to my A camera to finish it, it was right underneath. So now I didn't have to be nervous about remembering it. Wow. So what I did there is I took the critic in my head and she became my coach.
I could not love that more. I was telling you a little bit before about IFS, which is parts work. And in that, it really looks at those parts of us. So the inner critic, that part of you. And there is that part of us that's like, fuck our inner critic. She's miserable. She makes my life hell. Like, we just hate that, but there's so much wisdom that those parts hold, you know, when we sit there and listen and we're like, tell us what you're seeing, tell us what you're experiencing. And it's also usually guidance to help us be better. And that part of us only wants us to succeed and they're terrified we're going to fail. So in their terror, they're like, you shouldn't do that because I've failed before. You know what's going to happen. You're going to be embarrassed. People are going to comment about your looks. People are going to comment about your things. And they're just trying to protect you. And so when we can sit there and be patient and listen to that version of us, we're just so much better off. And then we can also go on to the interview or whatever we're doing as a more integrated person and as like, just like a person that's way more at peace because we're like, inner critic, I hear you. I've got you. And we're still going to go to this meeting. We're still going to do the presentation. We're still going to do this thing. Like, I respect you. And that for me is self-love. When we can look at the parts of us that we previously hated and just learn to love those aspects.
Yeah, the funny thing with self-love is I used to think of it as meaning you can never be critical of yourself. And that's why it never sat with me because I'm like, no, I need to propel myself forward. I am not the person I want to be. And every single day I try to grow to be the person I want to be. Now, here's the tricky thing with that. I'll never become it.
Totally.
And I know that, but I love the pursuit of growth. I love the pursuit of fulfillment. I don't, you know, even success, you said it earlier, like, you know, the success isn't guaranteed. And the truth is it's not. So you better love the journey.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, it doesn't mean you're ever going to get there. You don't know.
Yeah.
So do you enjoy the journey? Do you enjoy the experience of failing? Now, the trick is that I don't think anyone actually enjoys the experience of failing. But if you can cultivate your mind to think differently about the word failure, then it won't stop you in your tracks. And one of the, like, can I share a story?
Yes.
It was like my favorite
Story.
Yes. One of my favorite freaking stories about failure. I remind myself over and over again this story because every time I feel the sting, because it still feels it, no matter how many times I fail, I still feel the sting. I go back to this story. So it's really early days of Quest. We just have about enough money to hire people like staff to come and help. So there's maybe like us founders and then 3 other people that we've hired and they run the batch of bars. So like finally, we actually don't have to be in the manufacturing facility. We're just like in the tiny little office next door. So again, we're tiny at this point. Each batch costs around $5,000. That was everything when you're doing a startup. It's like life or death. My house was on the line as well. So if Quest went bankrupt, I lose my house. So that's very real as well. So you can imagine every little thing was important. In my head, it had to be perfect. It had to, everything had to succeed. Because again, I didn't have the experience. So I thought failing meant you were a failure. So anyway, these guys are now making the bars and we're in this little office and one of the guys comes in and he just looks deathly white. And he's like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And we're like, what happened? He's like, I've messed up a batch of bars. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. The guy thinks he's about to get fired. Now, I've never really experienced this type of thing before because I'm a newbie in the entrepreneurship journey. So I freak
You're like,
out.
should I fire you?
Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh my God, I lost my house. You know, like, it's like in the drama of it. But my husband's like, look, before you panic, let's just go see what we've got to work with. So we walk in the production facility and the guy's trying to explain, look, I was making a batch of peanut butter bars. And then I was going to move on and make a batch of mixed berry bars. So he's like, so I put the peanut butter in, I put the peanut powder in, I put the peanut all the peanuts in. And he's like, and I accidentally grabbed the mixed berry flavoring and put it in with a peanut butter instead of the peanut butter flavoring. So we're like, oh God. So my husband's like, look, we should just try it. And I'm like, well, that probably tastes nasty. So we're all kind of like holding our breath, you know, like holding our nose and like pinching it to take it. And then all of a sudden someone's like, kind of tastes like PB&J.
Oh my God, I loved that flavor.
Now, being British, I had no idea what PB&J was. So I was like, well, what do you mean? It's like, oh, it's when peanut butter meets jam and, you know, it's like the flavor profile. So I was like, oh, and they're like, it kind of really tastes like PB&J. So in that moment of this failure, which I thought I'm about to lose my house and everything go wrong, we come up with the genius idea that what if we wrap it in plain wrapping paper, so it's just like silver, so there's no markings. We put it in plain boxes. We put a blast out on Facebook that it's a prototype. Just 200 bars, right? Because we'd just made 200 boxes. We just made it. And it's like, so we do this blast. Prototype, new bar, come and try it, exclusive, only 200 boxes. It's PB&J. Dude, we sold out like that in a freaking heartbeat. Now, once everyone got the bars.
And now that guy's like.
Yeah. I knew it. Yeah. So a couple of weeks later, by the time the bars get shipped, people try them, the review comes in, everyone's freaking out about this bar, about how good it is. So what was happening was people are freaking out. They're like, I want more. I've just eaten my entire box. The people that didn't get to buy the bars have now major FOMO. And they're like, we want to try these. What the hell? We then realize it's a hit. People like the flavor profile. Within 4 weeks, we make wrappers, we print wrappers, we get them to our facility, we make a launch of it, and PB&J became our best-selling bar.
No way.
So we go from this utter failure, I think I'm about to ruin my company, to how can this work for me, pivoting, thinking a different way, and then using that failure as the best success you possibly can have.
Wow. A PB&J was a bomb flavor. I forgot about that.
Well, that's how it came about. What? Now you know.
I want to shake that man's hand. That's amazing. Something you mentioned before, I wanted to just double click on because I think it's small, but it's profound, is when your husband said to you, you know, you have a mission. What's your mission? You're like, impact women. And he's like, well, you're not living in accordance to that. Some people would be like, you know, I think what I appreciate about your relationship is your ability to give feedback and be honest and hold each other to a high standard. Tell me about how you've cultivated that in your relationship, because I think people desire the outcome of that, but aren't available for the journey to get there.
So true. It really became making the agreement from day one that we would always be honest. Now, we used to say brutally honest, but the truth is we don't want it to be brutal. We actually do want it to be kind, but I still want the honesty. And so you have to, it's like the foundation of what your relationship is built on. Now, that does mean having to hear the hard things, but it also allows you space to be able to say the hard things and say the truth. And once you make that commitment, you don't almost have that pushback of like, I can't believe you're saying that. Because I told my husband, it is his job to hold me accountable in case I'm unable to. And we've pinky swore. So now he's holding to an agreement I've asked for. And so you can't just go up to your partner and say, hey, I hate you in those pants. You'd be like, I need to give you the agreement that if you don't like what I'm
You're like,
wearing.
Section A says no comments about that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you have to have that agreement.
Yeah.
Now, where it becomes tricky is when it really does trigger you. So in that moment of his honesty, it didn't trigger me. I actually thought, oh, thank you. You've actually helped me see where I was about to go wrong. But in moments where it does trigger you, how do you maneuver that? And so one day, actually, I put on a top and I'd bought this new shirt, and it's early days of Quest again. We're working every waking hour. And so we hadn't had date night in like 2 months. So I buy this wonderful top and I'm like, I'm going to surprise him. It's date night. I'm going to look so smoking hot. I'm going to come down these stairs. I'm going to blow
He's gonna
his mind.
jaws drop.
Yeah, it's going to, yeah. So I put on the top. I walk down the stairs. Nothing. And I'm like,
You're like, I'm going to go back. I'll be back. Do that again.
no, part of me was like, I know my husband, he gets very distracted. He's very much in his own head. So I don't take that personally. I just know who he is. So I'm like, he's probably still worried about work. So we get to the restaurant and we're sitting at the bar before they see us. And he still doesn't say anything. And so I'm like, oh, you look nice, babe. You know how we fish, right? Like, this is early days. So
you're like, you look nice.
Yeah, you look nice.
You see anything?
Yeah, exactly. And now I would just be honest. But then I was like, well, I can't be honest. You just got to fish, right? So I'm like, babe, you look nice. And he's like, oh, thanks, babe. And he didn't say anything to me. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to test him. We agreed in our relationship, you don't test each other. So instead of me now sitting here literally testing, waiting for him to say something, I'm just going to ask him. So I'm like, babe, what do you think of this top? And he pauses and he looks me up and down and he goes, eh. Now imagine, I haven't been on date night for 8 weeks. I think I'm looking hot and he doesn't even like my top. So in that moment, I became emotionally responsive.
Totally.
And I went silent. And then I did the whole thing where he's like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine.
Classic.
And he just called me on it. He's like, babe, you say you're fine, but in every action you do, you don't seem fine. And I was like, yeah, babe, you know what? I'm really disappointed that you didn't like my top. And he turns around to me and he's like, baby, I'll always be honest with you. So you know when you've just woken up and you think you look a mess, when I tell you you look beautiful, I need to have earned that trust that you believe me. If I just say that you look beautiful and that I love the top or whatever, just because you're asking me, he's like, I will never be able, you'll never be able to trust when I'm being honest with you. And I was like, that's the most romantic thing you've ever said to me, and it was like, oh my God, I love you so much. And then after that though, so I realized where I'd gone wrong, that I'd asked for his honesty. And when I got it, it didn't sit well. Now, what do you do with that piece of information? So I said, it still doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So I then honestly came up with a game plan with him. So I was like, well, babe, it still doesn't feel good. So what I'll do next time is I'll just ask you before I leave for dinner. And now if you say you don't like it, it gives me the opportunity to say, okay, did I dress for him or did I dress for me? Because I love the top. So I'm like, but then at least I can make the decision based on what my goal is. And I don't feel now like the goal was to really knock his socks off. I don't hit a home run and now I can't do anything about it. So I realized that was the point. I wanted to knock his socks off. I didn't and I couldn't do anything about it. So now we just came up with a game plan of how we were going to maneuver next time. Now that idea, now span that out for 23 years of being together in every single arena, when it comes to business, when it comes to matters of the heart, when it comes to each other's families, which can be very tricky to navigate, friendships, burnout, overwhelm, conflict, every single thing we have experienced in life, failures, company successes, we talk about everything. And because of that little example, you've got multiple of those over 23 years. You now know you build a reputation. You don't build a reputation overnight, and that reputation doesn't get ruined by one act. So who are you? So the reputation that both me and my husband have with each other is you're always going to be honest for the sake of our relationship.
Do you guys have a process do you guys have like, hey, Saturday mornings, we're going to have our deep dive conversations, because I can imagine that there can be better and worse environments for giving honesty. So what is like the tactical way that you guys support each other in that? Is it your tone? Do you touch each other? Are you looking at each other? Like, any other tips for people to do that?
Yes. Never do when you're in a bad mood and when he's in a bad mood.
Love that.
So always make sure that you're actually in a happy environment.
Yeah.
Never come at them like they've done something wrong. So I will always almost like say something about myself first, and then turn it to him.
Love that.
So let's say that there's something that he's done personally that really bothered me.
Yep.
And I will say, hey, babe, when I did this thing the other day, it seemed like it irritated you. If you don't mind helping me talk through it, because if I did irritate you, I'd love to do something differently. So now I put myself first. He tells me, it makes him very like, oh my God, she's so receptive. Well, babe, what about you? So now, and it's not trickery. You're literally being honest. You're like, you don't make stuff up. That's the key. You never pretend. But you actually authentically take something because you genuinely want to get better at it. That's the other thing. You can't fake wanting to get better at it just so that you can tell him what he's done wrong. So we've just made an agreement in our relationship that we'll always say the hard thing in order to get to a better result. So in that moment, I put myself first because I actually want to get better. I actually want to be a better wife, a better spouse, a better support system. And then it gives you the space to flip the books and do the opposite. Now, here's the tricky thing though. You have to know if it's a dangerous conversation. And me and my husband both know sometimes when we'll go to talk about it, we think it's a great environment. Maybe we've had the cocktail. Maybe we're on vacation. We're like, we're both happy. This seems like a great time.
Remember when?
Yeah, like this seems like a great moment because actually he's actually open to it, right? This may be. So you start to talk about it and it feels really safe. You think you're doing a great job. He thinks he's doing a great job. You're so aligned. And over time, it starts to irritate you a bit. You start to use a bit of language that starts to rub. You start to feel the friction. In that moment, do either of you speak up to pause the conversation? What usually happens is you both just keep going.
Yeah.
You keep going, and then it becomes an explosive relationship. And you're like, we started off both aligned. We did all the things. We were both in a good mood. We were both in a wonderful environment. We weren't saying anything negative. How did we get here? So the key is to make sure that you've got these pillars all along that way as you discuss things that become the flags that you can say to each other to maybe take a pause. So one of the things is we literally say, as we're talking, my husband's actually better at it than I, and that's another thing, is who's better at it. Have a person that is actually allocated that role. And so my husband's like, babe, I think we're getting in dangerous territory. And those are the words he uses. Now, dangerous territory doesn't mean it's me. He's not saying, hey, you're getting agitated.
Hey, you're crazy.
Yes. It just means I'm feeling the friction right now. And the past has told us this friction doesn't lead anywhere well. So if we know this, maybe we need to take a pause. And we can reconvene once we've both had time to think about what the other person is saying. And so that's also the key. So we've come up with ways to talk about it. He's the party that's responsible for doing it because he's just better at than me. Like I'll be like, no, we're fine.
Oh my God, I know.
We can keep going. We're not dangerous. Yeah.
Who's dangerous? I'm not dangerous.
Exactly. I don't know what you mean by triggered. I'm not triggered.
Like dangerous.
So I just go, he is better at it than me. And what makes us a great partnership is we know who's better at something than the other. So it's even like I take relationships like a game of tennis where a lot of couples will be playing a game of tennis, but you're playing solos. You're on one side of the net and the person's on the other. And what do? You hit the ball and you hope they miss it. At the end of the day, only one of you can win. But if you decide that you're playing a game of tennis that's a game of doubles, now what happens when one of you is weak? Let's say I'm really bad at my backhand. I have a partner that gets strong at the backhand because they know it's needed for us to win together. So when we talk about these sorts of things, we go, are we a team of doubles or are we playing a game of singles? We're playing a game of doubles. Great. Where's your strength? Where's my strength? And do we pinky swear and agree before we get ourselves in that situation that I am the right person to do this thing? Yes. Great. So now when I bring it up, you can't push back. Agreed. So we have all of these agreements before we get into these hard discussions that then that can be tricky. So my husband is the responsible party. He says, hey, we're getting into dangerous territory. So those are the things that we put in place. The final thing that we do is sometimes you just need a disruptor. So when you're like arguing and then someone calls and you're like, I can't believe, hello. You like answer the phone totally different.
Or you're at dinner and they're like, yeah, do you want any beverages? You're like, yeah.
Exactly. You're screaming at each other. You're annoyed with each other and the waiter comes over and you pretend nothing's wrong. If everyone can agree that actually works and it can actually disrupt that moment, then just say, how do you actually manipulate having disruptors in your relationship purposely to serve you? So what we do is we used to, and now we don't because we've just gotten good at this and now it's become a habit of ours. But I bought these little chips. They were like these little rocks that I bought from like a souvenir store. And it's tiny. It's a little stone and it just says love on it. And so I bought 2 and I said, babe, you're going to take one and I'm going to take one. The next time we find ourselves in an argument where it's just escalated and neither of us realize it's escalated, whoever thinks of it first, take out the love token and put it on the table. And what we agreed that love token means is whatever you're feeling right now, I need you to know I love you. And so we made an agreement of what that meant as a disruptor. And what's funny is about maybe a month ago, because we've gotten so good, we don't have these chips. We haven't used in years.
Yeah.
But we had an argument about a month ago that we couldn't equalize on.
Yeah.
And so God bless my husband. I turned around and he got a little piece of paper and he wrote love on it. And he just slid it across. He's like, I don't have the stone, but.
Sweet.
And so now it reoriented me. It disrupted my emotion. It reminded me of who he was, of what his intentions are. And it just said, okay, we just need to pause. It doesn't solve the problem. It's not like we sweep the problem under the rug. We still actually talk about the problem.
Yeah.
But it disrupts us enough to say, now maybe not be the time for us to continue this discussion. Why don't you go ahead and think through it? I'll think through it and then we'll reconvene and find a way to get through it together.
Oh, I love that tip so much. I think too, because when you're in that heightened nervous system state and you're triggered and then, when you're in a dynamic with a partner and there's a moment where sometimes you're like, I kind of want this to be done or I want it to be over and you kind of want to shift to forgiveness time, but you don't want to let go of that feeling of you're right. So even that just kind of breaks it. We can start to move into conflict resolution. We can kind of mosey our way out of this. And it just gives such a softness to things. I think that's so genius.
Yeah. And then the other thing is we have agreed to never say sorry if we don't mean it.
That's a good one.
So even in that, we both in the middle of an argument, girl, will be like, babe, I love you. I so want to say sorry right now because I know that it will actually make you feel better. But I don't think I've done anything wrong. Wow. And so we'll even say that where it's smart. I really want to say it right now because I feel your pain. I feel that I've really upset. And typically it's more the other way around. My husband, I'm just like, I just want you to apologize. And he's just like, I hear you, babe, but I don't agree. And so in that moment, I'm like, okay, explain to me why. And he's like, so of course we always orient. I didn't want to upset you. That's important.
Yeah.
That wasn't my intention. But what I said, I still stand by. Now, what happens when you say you're sorry? The other person interprets that to mean you didn't mean it. Now, what if you actually did?
Totally.
So we've given each other permission to not say sorry. And so all of these rules that we've accumulated over the 23 years that we've been together, they have been things that we've agreed upon based on the struggles that we have. And we've got a choice. Do we want to die happily married? Happily is the key. If the answer is yes, we both have aligned goals. If you have aligned goals, you have to agree, we think in business terms, you have to agree on the strategy of how you get to the goal. So even if it's hard, just like a business, if you know it needs to be done in order for your business to succeed, suck it up and do it.
Yes.
And so that's how we approach things. It's it isn't easy. These discussions, there'll be some times where we have an issue that we have to talk through for 3 days.
Of course, yeah.
And you know how easy it would have been to be like, if he just said sorry, I would have forgiven him, we would have moved on. Or if I had just if I hadn't pushed back, if I just said, you know what, babe, you're right. But I don't think he's right.
Yes.
So, and there's no ego around it. Again, going back to once you agree in the goal, the ego doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And you have to remind yourself of that. And so it all stems from agreeing on the goal, coming up with a strategy to do it, and then creating rules around that allow you guys to navigate things when times get hard.
Wow. I love that too, because it's giving yourselves the opportunity when you're not fighting to have the strategies to use when you are fighting. So it's like, hey, we're calm. These are what we're going to implement if we have a heightened nervous system state or if we're feeling triggered by things. I think a lot of times in relationships, people just assume that it's going to work. They have the first years of relationship where it's the honeymoon stages and everything's fine. And then they're not even implementing enough of the strategies in place to last through the conflict of the relationship. But you guys have such an interesting thing because it's you guys are both so sovereign in who you are as people. you have to be very sovereign in who you are to be like, you know what? No, I actually don't agree. Like, I need to know more, and I'm going to continue to kind of rub up against you as a sovereign being. So how do you guys maintain being so intimately connected and being close, but still maintaining your own sense of self and not sort of like, just not losing yourself in relationship where you can be your own people and then cultivate a relationship from that point?
Yeah. The most important thing in my life is my relationship, except for myself. I am the most important person. And I didn't learn that lesson until late in life.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I need my husband also to have the same feeling, because I appreciate and respect who he is as a man individually. He appreciates and respects who I am as a woman individually. And if you're trying to erode who that person is to suit you, that isn't a healthy relationship. And so even let's take, for instance, my husband is incredibly ambitious. And so people often will say to me, you're so lucky. You guys are so lucky. And I'm like, it isn't luck. Other people who may prioritize or appreciate other things wouldn't work with someone like my husband because he works 100 hours a week. So now imagine from Monday to Friday, I barely see him. Other people may feel neglected. I know the man that I married. I was attracted to an ambitious man. I was turned on by an ambitious man. So what? I'm going to change that now that I've got a ring on my finger? No, it's the thing that he prides himself on. It's the thing that I want him to bring to the relationship. So I'm very conscious to make sure I never ask him to be somebody he's not. And the same for me, as I've built my confidence, as I've built my badassery, as I've built my independence as a strong woman, he appreciates that. And so he's like, I will never ask you to be less than. But here's the tricky thing. I went from a stay-at-home wife, I'm going to support you, I'm going to have 4 children, to I don't want any kids. I don't want to cook and clean for you. And now I want to run a business with you.
Yeah.
It became a very tricky thing to navigate. But ultimately it came back down to, I'd said to him, babe, I love you more than life itself, but I don't want to cook and clean for you anymore. It doesn't bring me happiness. And it was a very hard road to navigate. But ultimately what he said to me is, what kind of husband would I be if I prioritized clean underwear over my wife's happiness? Once we agreed that what I was doing, being a stay-at-home wife, wasn't going to make me happy, I painted a picture of what was going to make me happy. Once I painted that picture, I sat with him as a team and we navigated how I was going to make that transition together. And so again, going back to anyone listening, how would you feel if your partner asked you to not be the person you want to be? Now, give the same gift to your partner.
Summer is upon us. And if we haven't been taking care of our skin through the winter, it is time, babies. It's springtime going into summer. And I don't know about you, but I always feel really, really good and confident when my body skin is looking great, supple, glowy, healthy, alive. And I have a brand that will take care of you. Osea, OSEA. Clinically proven seaweed-infused skincare that provides results you can truly see and confidence you can feel. I will attest to that. So this is a brand that's been around for over 28 years. They're clean, vegan, cruelty-free, climate neutral certified, and they just know what they're doing. I'm going to call out some products that just make me feel, smell, and look amazing, especially in the summer where I'm wearing, shorts, skirts, dresses, showing off a little leg, if you will. The Undaria algae body oil is gone viral. It is one of my favorite products. I have to have at least 2 bottles of it at all times. This oil is rich yet never greasy. Clinically proven to instantly improve skin elasticity. It visibly firms and makes your skin feel more sculpted and toned and leaves skin soft and silky and so glowy. You're going to be obsessed. I notice I'll put it on one leg and not the other. I mean, the difference is actually crazy. One leg looks alive and the other one looks blah, to be honest. Okay, and if I'm really going for it, usually at night, just so I get super moisturized overnight while I'm sleeping, Undaria algae body butter. And this is just indulgent, buttery rich texture. And if you have crepey skin, this is great for that. It's clinically proven to hydrate for 72 hours and it'll just transform your skin to soft, smooth, and supple. How about that, finally, the anti-aging body balm. Obsessed with silky lotion serum. It's a hybrid that melts into your skin and leaves you glowing. You're going to love it. So glow from the inside out with clean vegan skin and body care from Osea, OSEA. Get 10% off your first order site wide with code A30POD, A30POD, baby, at oseamalibu.com. That's A30POD. You'll get free samples with every order. They're amazing like that. And free shipping on orders over $60. So head to oseamalibu.com and use the code A30POD for 10% off. A30POD for 10% off. I don't know about you, but finding hair care that has clean ingredients and actually works is really, really hard. But I found it for us. Yay. Vegamore, baby. They are made with clean ingredients and have given me visibly healthier hair and scalp. And I'm really, really excited to talk to you about it. So basically, I've seen my hair get visibly thicker, fuller, shinier, longer, especially in this postpartum period. I mean, I am just trudging uphill when it comes to looking and feeling good. And I am doing my absolute best. And this has really helped my hair. I love Vegamore also because they're cruelty-free and are never formulated with potentially harmful chemicals like parabens or hormones. I got to be paying attention to that. So do you. What's even better is Vegamore's value kits, like the Grow Essentials kit. So that's the one that I use. I recommend to you, where you get to try more than one amazing product at a great savings when you sign up for a monthly subscription. So you save more and you never run low on products that you need to take care of your hair. I love this Grow kit. So I love the Grow Full Routine Kit. So a start to finish hair wellness ritual for you. You are going to love it. Okay, so what is in it? It has the Grow Scalp Detoxifying Serum. So I'm obsessed with this. I basically use this weekly or so, maybe 1 to 2 times a week. It removes buildup on the scalp. And then I love the Grow Revitalizing Shampoo. Let me just tell you how unbelievable this shampoo and conditioner smell. Again, no harsh chemicals or anything like that, but the smell is just freaking divine. You lather it on your wet hair, leave in for like a minute, and then I do the Grow Revitalizing Conditioner on my damp hair, scalp to ends, massage it in. I just like really take my time. It's like a spa in there. And then I wash my hair like that probably twice a week. And on non-wash days, I use Grow Dry Shampoo to absorb excess oil, which I absolutely love. And then finally, the Grow Hair Serum. I've just put it all over my scalp. I massage it in. Just do me nice. It's awesome. And then I do not rinse that out, by the way. Okay, babies. Lastly, take one of the Grow Biotin gummies for hair per day. I love it. Again, I've noticed my hair has just grown like a freaking weed. So this is the Grow Full Routine Kit, but they have different kits and products for hair, lashes, brows. It's amazing. Check it out. Vegamore, baby. You've heard about them, but I'm telling you, I stand by it. I love these products. Be sure to be consistent in your routine for your most beautiful, healthy looking hair. Okay, elevate your hair wellness routine this year with Vegamore. For a limited time, get 20% off your first subscription order by going to vegamore.com/almost30 and use the code almost30 at checkout. That's vegamore.com/almost30, code almost30 to save 20% off your first order. Vegamore.com, vegamore.com/almost30. The code is almost30.
I love that so much because I have noticed a trend with women or women and men, I guess, but in relationships, the thing that you're attracted to initially is like the kind of thing that you dampen and die in the end. So if a man's attracted to a woman because she's confident and boisterous and outgoing, but then in the end, in the relationship, it like annoys him or triggers him. For women, they want a man who's really ambitious, but when that man is never home, they're like, why are you never home? Why don't you prioritize me? And it's kind of like, it's what you signed up for a little bit, or just knowing who your person is before you get married. But I really love when you said painting a picture for them. I think oftentimes people in relationship can want a different outcome. You know, in your example, you could say, you know, I don't want to stay home. I don't want to cook and clean. I want to be happy. And then your husband could say, okay, what does that mean? And maybe if you didn't have questions, you'd be like, I don't know. So it's hard to help someone if you don't have a clear picture of what it is that's going to make you happy. And when you're your own person and you're sovereign, you're going to know what's going to make you happy. So you can have someone actually support you in that. Yeah, I was really curious about that, hearing your story about that transition from you being a stay-at-home stay-at-home mother wanting to have kids to not? Like, what was that journey like for you? Because you're working on completely different ends of the spectrum as a woman of what the idea, what the sort of worlds are. It's either you stay at home, have kids, or you are this badass businesswoman that's running the business. Like, tell me about that transition. How did that feel?
Yeah, so being a stay-at-home wife was never something that I thought would be my life.
Yeah.
And so that's why when I talk about it, I was stuck there for 8 years. And so it isn't about being a stay-at-home wife. I think that especially mothers, oh my God, it's the freaking hardest job on the planet. So it just wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't my dream. It wasn't my vision. And so I was stuck there. Now, why did I get stuck? I was getting tremendous validation by being an amazing wife. I was getting it from my Greek dad, who was like, you're such a good wife. From my husband, who was like, babe, you're the best wife ever. You take great care of me. So I was stuck there. Also, I didn't hit rock bottom. How many people have you met, in fact, whose lives changed because they hit rock bottom? They're like, well, I had nothing else to lose, so I may as well.
I was an addict.
Exactly. So I may as well.
So true. The only way's up.
Now think about the millions of us that don't hit rock bottom. Our life is just okay.
Yeah.
Our life is just fine. I call that purgatory of the mundane. Your life is just mundane enough that you get stuck in purgatory. You don't make a change. And so that's where I was. Over time, I started to realize I was waiting for the confidence. I was like, when I have the confidence, I'm going to tell my husband that I want a different life. When I have the confidence, I'm going to tell him that actually this doesn't bring me happiness. When I have the confidence. And so I kept saying that. Then my husband just is at the time, he's chasing money because we had agreed we were going to try and make movies together. My background's filmmaking. I won't bore you with that story. But he then starts chasing money to try and make enough for us to make movies. 8 years later, he's still chasing money and he's profoundly unhappy and I'm profoundly unhappy. And so I just said, I don't care about money. All I care about is your happiness. Now it's funny because even then I'm like, I care about your happiness, never mind mine. So I wasn't taught, like we said at the beginning, I wasn't taught to think about myself. I wasn't taught to actually say to myself, what do you want? It's always about serving the family, serving your partner. I'm Greek Orthodox. I was brought up very traditional Greek. So that was the message I was taught. So you can imagine now I'm saying to my husband, you're not happy. To cut a very long story short, he's like, I agree. Me and my business partners are all unhappy. We're going to do something predicated on passion and not predicated on the money. What does that look like? The protein bar was the answer to that. I was making them at home for my husband to take to work, that his business partners were also making homemade protein bars for them to take to work, and they were working at a tech company. So now they're miserable. I basically laid down this ultimatum. You're now damaging our relationship because you are profoundly miserable. So once I say that, we then pivot. Cool, what are we going to do? Protein bar company. All right, sure, I'm a great Greek wife. How can I help? That was how it got started. How can I help? And so in the helping of it, when we're growing at 57,000%, as they're trying to exit the tech company, I'm the only person that's free. So everything as Quest is growing, people are asking me to help. As people are asking me to help, I have that insecurity mindset that I'd said at the beginning as well. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this. But every time I hit a hurdle, do you want to lose your house or do you want to figure it out? Every time I said I want to figure it out, I started to build my confidence. Going back to the competence part. I didn't believe in myself. I forced myself to figure it out. When I failed, I was like, all right, Lisa, you can get back up or you can lose your house. I kept getting back up. In getting back up, I started to wax on, wax off, build my competence and eventually build my confidence to the point where I realized, wow, I'm actually good at this. And I didn't believe I was good at anything. And so that made me feel so profoundly fulfilled because it wasn't easy. It wasn't like I was succeeding all the time. It was freaking difficult. But I found joy in the pursuit of building my skill sets. Once I realized I found the joy in the pursuit of building my skill sets, I started to ask myself, do I actually want kids? It was the first time in my entire life I actually asked myself the question. I was just told as a kid I would always grow up, be a wife and have children. So I never even questioned the idea of whether I wanted children or not. And so in that process, I started to ask myself, I started to turn up the volume on that dial of the whisper. Do you want children? I don't think you want children. that started to get louder and louder. And I allowed myself to raise that volume so I could hear the question, so I could then process, do I actually want kids or not? And I don't even remember your original question.
No, it was. Yeah, I was so curious. And then how was that conversation with your husband?
Yeah, so I then pulled him aside
Yes.
and I tried to navigate the conversation.
Because there's a lot, just saying, there's a lot of women that are going through this experience of not wanting children and like feeling empowered in that. Because I think there's a shame around it a little bit.
1,000%. There was so much shame around it. Especially because you're talking about, this is probably now around 15 years ago.
Yes.
So women were not talking about not having children. So I really battled for it. So that's why it was the whisper, right? You try to shut that whisper out because all of your insecurities, everybody else's voice is louder than yours, where they're coming in saying, well, of course you're going to have kids. Of course you're going to have kids. When are you going to have kids? Why aren't you pregnant? And then the assumption came that either I couldn't have children or that my marriage was in trouble. No one even considered the fact that I was deciding not to have children. So I said to myself, okay, before I really go into it, having decided, I need to actually explore all my options and really take off the blinders, because I think we put blinders on. And I was like, I don't want to find myself in a situation. I put blinders on for the last 8 freaking years. Hell fucking no, am I going to do that again, ever? So I'm like, take the blinders off, Lisa. What does your life look like if you quit Quest and you become a stay-at-home wife? What does your life look like? Paint that picture. All right, your husband's an ambitious man. He's told you very clearly he's not coming home at 7 p.m. to eat dinner with you and the kids. Cool. I actually appreciate his honesty. So now there's no like shame or like, I can't believe you're not coming home for dinner. No. He's told me, babe, we can have kids, but here are my non-negotiables. I'm not going to get up in the middle of the night for the kid. The reason is because I'm very ambitious. I will resent the children if I'm not able to express my ambition. In order for me to show up and crush it at work, I need to have cognitive clarity, which means that I can't be disrupted in my sleep. So he just broke down exactly. This is just him saying feelings. There's no judgment here. You just got to say truth.
Yeah.
So because he told me that truth, I realized, okay, if I'm a stay-at-home wife, it is all on me. He's not getting up in the middle of the night and he's not coming home at 7 p.m. Now, what does the weekends look like? Again, taking off the blinders. The weekends, he wants to be a really great father. He's actually said that. I don't want to be a neglectful father. I actually want to be there for my children, which means that on the weekends, I'm going to be taking them to soccer practice. I'm going to be teaching them. Like, I want to be a present father. So no bullshit. What does that actually mean for me and him? I now go down his priority list. And without anyone else's opinion, Lisa, are you okay with going down his priority list? And vice versa. I'm going to be attentive mother. Is he okay with going down my priority list? And so we just literally did that for everything. So I said, okay, if that's what it looks like if I'm a stay-at-home mother, what does it look like if I choose not to have children? What does my life look like on a day-to-day? I kind of use it as, what does your average Wednesday look like? And the reason why I choose an average Wednesday is I could get so caught up in the emotion of having a little baby. I love the idea of feeling a baby grow inside me. I love the idea that if I had a son, it would look like my husband. I would freaking melt. I love the idea that if I had a girl, I could teach her all the empowering mindset stuff that I never had. Those I could get excited about. Yeah. But what does an average Wednesday look like? If you're hating your life, is that all worth the sacrifice? Now it's up to you. But I took the blinders off. So I painted these 3 buckets: stay-at-home wife, working and having children, or just working. And I said, Lisa, what life do you want? Once I realized the life that I actually wanted, the one that I was the most excited about, was going all in on business. That was my answer. And so I sat with my husband. I went over the exact process that I just took you through. And I said, babe, I think this is what is going to make me happy. How do you feel? And so he went through his process. He's like, yeah, babe, at the end of the day, we both want to leave a legacy. We both want to create an impact. But together we've decided we're actually going to choose to do that on a global scale versus doing it at home with our children. There's no right or wrong. There's no judgment. But once we went through that process and we discussed it, we then were able to talk to other people. But the harder decision really was me being a full-time entrepreneur and being his business partner instead of being, his stay-at-home wife, because that directly impacted his day-to-day. So when I say he literally was this guy who he would wake up, his gym clothes were on the floor next to him, so he wouldn't even have to get out of bed. He could look, his gym clothes were there. He would get changed. He would go to the gym. He would come back and his work clothes were hanging for him. And he would get in the shower, he would put his clothes as he's walking out the door. I've made his lunch, he's taken his lunch. Because I didn't want him to make any other decisions except for what was his decisions he was going to make in his business.
Wow.
That made me feel like a good partnership.
For sure.
But that was also how I got stuck for the 8 years.
Yeah.
So you can imagine every need he has is preempted and taken care of. So now going back to your question, when I approached him, it was to absolutely understand that he's going to have a feeling about the transition.
Yeah.
That I need to give him the grace that he's going to, it's going to be difficult for him. I am now making his life more difficult. Doesn't mean I'm going to change my mind. Doesn't mean that I'm going to dim my light. But I need to give him the grace that is going to be difficult for him. So if it's going to be difficult for him, I'm going to go back to what I said, we're playing a game of doubles. This is a team. How can I help him with this transition? So when I sat him down, I said, baby, I love you. Again, it was important for me to say the feeling first.
Yeah.
I love you, but I don't want to cook and clean for you anymore. But I understand that right now, this is very convenient for you. So how can I be a support system to you as we navigate this transition and as I change and evolve? Well, just like a drug addict, what if I wean you off me helping you? What does weaning you off look like? Well, this week I do everything for you 7 days a week. What if next week I do it just for 6 days? And then the week after I do it for 5. And then the week after that I do it for 4. The week after that I do it for 3. And then you can see how now he feels like I'm not just coming to him like, hey, I'm changing, you better get on board.
Yes.
I've actually given him space to feel seen, to feel heard, and to be a team. And so as we navigated this, I said we need to be honest. Going back to the other question you asked me, I need you to be honest about the difficulties you're having in this transition. I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to be honest with you about the troubles that I'm having in this transition, and together we'll figure it out. And so it was things as silly as, what happens if I don't do the laundry? Babe, turn your underwear inside out. Are you okay with that? We actually had these discussions, girl. It wasn't just leave it to chance.
Yes.
And then when it happens, what ends up happening, he starts to get bitter, but he doesn't say anything. And then that bitterness turns into contempt. And you want to know the one thing that is an absolute predictor by 90% of a failure of a relationship is you show me contempt in a relationship, I can guarantee you that relationship will fail. So now I understand contempt is the number one predictor of a divorce. I don't want contempt. We need to open up the space so that contempt doesn't happen. How do we do that? Let's navigate all the problems before it happens. So you don't have underwear. What do? Let's turn it inside out. All right, cool. I can deal with that. This is obviously before Quest. It's not like we can just buy more underwear. So it's like, or as Quest was building, I should say. And then one day, girl, he yells to me from the other room. He's like, babe, I'm out of underwear. And I was like, all right. And like that pause where you're like, oh God, is this the moment that the reality actually hits and he doesn't support? And now, and he turns around and he's like, so I guess I'm going to work. Commando. Bye, babe. And he goes to work without underwear. Stop. Now, in that moment, because of the way we handled it, because it was a team, he was proud to go to work without wearing underwear because he's like, I'm doing this to support my wife.
Yes.
And you better believe I still tell that damn story today because I want him to know and feel appreciated for those little sacrifices that he made to support my growth.
Wow. I love how honest, like the no blinders, like the truth. Because I think a lot of times in relationship, you can have like, well, my ideal is he comes home at 6 and then we have dinner. And it's like he's saying like, I'm not going to come home at 7. And then women are like, oh, we're going to hope he's, you know what I mean? It's kind of like you are working with what you hope will happen and not the actual reality of the situation. Reality of the situation is that his day is going to be impacted by the decision that you make. Reality of the situation is that things are going to change in your dynamic. And the fact that you guys really approach that with the truth and honesty, I just love.
Thank you. And then also the last part is the truth is that I could have been married to someone where having kids was a non-negotiable.
Yes.
And I don't want to dismiss that. It happened that the thing that I wanted to change on wasn't my husband's non-negotiable. And so there is a different world where if he says, I really want children, like just like I never want him to dim my light, I would never ask him to dim who he wants to be and the type of person he wants to be. So if being a father was a non-negotiable to him, we may not be together is the truth. And so I don't want to brush past that either. I've got my non-negotiables that I've told him from day one. And so for him, that wasn't a non-negotiable. And so those are also very important things that we've been able to navigate these things because it wasn't something that was a staple in our relationship.
Yes. You said something about the mundane, and I do feel like so many people live just complacent lives or lives where it's just ordinary. What do you say to those people that are living an ordinary, mundane life but want more?
Okay, so there's a few things I want to say here. I just interviewed a death doula.
Cool.
Which is someone that basically, if you've been diagnosed with terminal cancer, they help you come to grips with it. If you've only got 2 months to live, or if you're just dying of old age, like they help the person navigate the process of death.
Wow.
They also help the families that they're leaving behind. But the one thing is that studies show the thing that people regret the most on their deathbed isn't the things they did, it's the things they didn't do.
Right.
If you know that to be fact, how does that sit well with you? Think about all the things that you're choosing not to do right now. Do you want, because it's coming for us, death is inevitable. People don't like to talk about it. I find it very empowering to talk about it. I find it allows me to live the life in the now. And it was a quote in Shawshank Redemption, the movie. Get busy living or get busy dying. And the truth is, you get a freaking choice every day to get busy living or get busy dying. So homie, if you're listening right now, make a damn choice. So first of all, if your idea is, I want to get busy living, amazing. Now you've made the choice to pivot. Now you need a game plan. What does that look like? What are you going to try? And then project forward. If I don't do this, when I'm on my deathbed, am I going to be okay with not having tried? Because now it just eliminates all the excuses. Just ask yourself that very transparent question. And if the question is, no, I'm not going to be okay. All right, great. Now what are you going to do? What are you going to test? What are you going to see? And sometimes it's going to work out and sometimes it isn't. You know, everything that I'm talking about today, there's no guarantee. Quest was never guaranteed to be $1 billion company. My relationship was never guaranteed to succeed. And again, I'm only 44, been married for 21 years, been together for 23. I plan to be married to the day I die. And I watched the show on the Blue Zones. And I know the reality is you can live till you're over 100. So I play a game. No bullshit. What would it take? So anyone listening, once you've decided, that's the first step. Then play no bullshit. What would it actually take for me to do this? And again, what that does is it removes every single excuse you're giving yourself right now of why you didn't do it. All right, now the whole goal is to remove the excuses so you can see it for what it is. And then you decide whether it's a life you want. So let's say I secretly kind of want to be a pianist. Like I love the piano. And so I used to say, I can't play the piano. And I used to be like, I really wish I could. The truth is, I could be probably maybe in the top 50, 100 pianists if I actually put my time and effort. No bullshit. What would it actually take for me to be one of the top pianists and play in the Disney Concert Hall in LA? Okay, I'm taking all assumptions, all excuses off the table, and I just lay out my plan. All right, let's say you don't have enough money for a piano, and that's one of the excuses. All right, no bullshit. What would it take for you to get enough money to have a piano? Maybe you don't go to Starbucks. Maybe you give up that wonderful one-bedroom apartment and you get a studio apartment and live with a roommate. No bullshit. What would it take? Now, once you've processed that, maybe you don't go on a date for years because you have to spend every waking hour practicing the piano. Maybe you don't go on vacations. Maybe you say no to those Christmas trips because you have to get in the hours to play the piano. And now you can see I've just written out, no bullshit, what would it actually take for me to be one of the best pianists? And the beautiful thing is now I step back and I ask myself, is that the life I want? And if it sounds terrible, and who the hell wants to be in their mid-40s in a studio apartment with a roommate, not going on dates, that doesn't sound like a life I want. Now I've made the decision. And now when I'm on my deathbed, I don't say to myself, I wish or I regret. What you say to yourself is, I processed it and it gave me a life that wouldn't fill me up and make me happy. So I made that decision based on the fact that it led to a life I don't want. But you're not on your deathbed saying, I wish I found the money to get a piano. I wish that I just tried. No. You did it with your eyes open. You played the game, no bullshit, what would it take? And you realized you don't want it.
Wow. I know. I love that. Just no bullshit. It's like no stories, nothing. Just like, and I think people, they want to live in the stories. And they don't want to get real about like, okay, what would it take? Like for some reason, people like, it's like they get triggered and they're like, no, I love living in my storyland, that it's not possible, that I can't do it. You know, it's kind of like the life that people live. But I want to talk about the new chapter that you've added. What is the new chapter for all the people that do not have radical confidence? The cover's stunning. It looks incredible. I'm so excited to dive in. What was your inspiration for adding a chapter?
So when I came to, okay, you can release the paperback. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah.
The thing that I actually missed, which I can't believe that I missed, and again, I'm just a learner, so I don't beat myself up. I'm like, that was a great lesson. That I didn't really talk about my ex-boyfriend before I met my husband. And he was extreme.
I love this ad. I'm like, oh, we got tea.
Yeah, we got tea.
Not what I expected.
Yeah, but he was extremely toxic.
Okay.
And what I realized was nothing, I mean nothing, girl, will erode your confidence more than a toxic relationship. Being around someone.
What do you mean?
Every day, I take it, you know.
It's like, what do you think the glow ups?
Yeah. So every day, someone diminishing your dreams, diminishing who you are, who you want to be, laughing at you, making you the butt of the joke, all of that. That will erode your confidence more than anything, more than losing the job, more than losing money. I mean, just everything. And so I realized that was one of the big pinnacle pivots in my life, that if I didn't leave him, what would my life have looked like? It wouldn't be what you see today. Yeah. I wouldn't have written a book. I would still be in London because he thought I was nuts wanting to live in America. So I was like, I want to make movies, right? I said earlier, I studied film. I want to make movies. I want to win an Academy Award. And every time I would say it, he would mock it. And because I thought he loved me and I loved him, I took his words for truth. And I opened the chapter with a quote from his, and he said, nobody's going to love you as much as I do. And the truth was, when you haven't experienced love, when you are insecure and someone shows you an ounce of attention, you paint that as love. And so at the time, even though he was toxic and verbally abusive and put me down every which way, when he said, no one's going to love you as much as I do, I was like, oh God, what if he's right? So he absolutely knew how to manipulate my insecurities. And my insecurity was, Lisa, you're not lovable. People make fun of you in school. You've never had a boyfriend. You're not lovable. And so when he would say that, he just reconfirmed the voice I already had in my head. And so I stayed. And what I, again, realized was if I didn't leave, I wouldn't be the person I am. I wouldn't have built my confidence. I wouldn't have a relationship now where I can talk about non-negotiables. We can appreciate each other's honesty. And so I felt like I was doing people a disservice to not address this one thing that a lot of us don't necessarily pay attention to. And then just to empower women and all people that are listening, that you can have a different life. It ain't going to be freaking easy, but you can. And it means by letting go of the things that you're holding, that you think are validating you. I thought my ex-boyfriend, having a boyfriend, I thought validated me. And it was the complete opposite. He did everything he could to invalidate me.
Yeah, I think it's such a great point and add, because you could try to do all the lessons and things that you have in here. But if you have someone that you're sharing space and energy with, especially sexual energy with, psychic energy with all the time, that is going to be cutting you down, clipping you, you could do your very best, but it is so hard to like believe in yourself, to make the change, to build your confidence. Yeah, I just feel so much for that, because I think a lot of times in the personal development, self-help space, people kind of can go from the outside and try and change certain things in their life. But if they have a root issue of something that's happening in their intimate relationships or at home, it's really hard to just apply some of the principles from the outside.
Have you been in a toxic relationship before?
Yeah. What do you mean?
Did you have a growth mindset at the time, or was that something that you adopted after you left?
I always had a growth mindset, but I applied it to everything outside of my relationship. And I got as far as I could with it, and the growth mindset. But then, and I actually, God bless, like my abilities, I got far, but then I was hiding, I was insecure, all of these things.
Why do you think that is, out of curiosity? Because people listening right now, right, they think, oh, if you've got the skill sets, if you do the things, then you must be very secure in every aspect of your life. So what made you think that, obviously you had it in every area, why didn't you implement it in your relationship?
Yeah, that was, I think that I didn't have the conscious awareness that that's what relationships were for. The relationships that I saw modeled were not very intimate, not very growth-minded. It was almost like you were buddies and you hung out together, but you didn't really go there. And so I had to realize, I think it was a few years in to the relationship where I was like, oh, if people knew on the outside that Krista Williams was in this type of relationship, that's not a match. That's not congruent. And I had to be honest with myself. Like, I'm talking about these things, but I'm actually not living them in full. And it wasn't like a crazy discrepancy, but if I'm going to be empowered or kind or, whatever I was, and I wasn't actually living it, then I had to be honest with myself. And then it was really just becoming conscious of the patterns that I was in. In the toxic dynamic, you sometimes can't really see them. And I couldn't see them. I had been in a toxic dynamic with my mother as a narcissist, and then moving to like different narcissistic relationships. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't realize that I was psychically being gaslit, or like I was, there's a lot of things that happen in those dynamics that you can't really see clearly because you're so in it. And so once I was aware, it was like my entire reality shifted, where I was like, I've been completely living for someone else's comfort and as like a pawn for someone else most of my life. And I've done a great job being who I am as much as I can outside of the home, but I had to like get real.
Out of curiosity, did you find yourself getting toxic too? Because I did.
Oh, what do you mean? Yeah, for sure. Like I remember, at the end I was just like, and in IFS, it's called firefighters. There's aspects of us that when we're like traumatized or like pushed to a limit, there's a firefighter that comes that's like, this absolutely is not okay. So I remember a moment where we had this one fight and I was like, I saw red. Like, and the way that I acted was so out of character for myself, but it felt like that's the point I had to get to have change enacted. And it almost felt like the level set point where it was like, I'd be pushed to the point of that level to be, to have them feel relieved that I wasn't like perfect. So I looked bad. So it was like, okay, you're bad. You're wrong. Look what you've done. And then the rest of whatever I was mad about would be completely negated because I had gone to that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 1,000%. And this is something that I talk about in that chapter, is that becomes part of that dynamic that actually keeps you stuck.
Yes.
So it becomes, I think, a protective mechanism. So almost like, it's interesting that you said firefighter, because I thought of myself as the opposite. It's like there's a room in the house that's burning and I get a match and I fucking torch the whole house.
Oh, yeah.
And that is what kept me there, because over time, as he started to weigh on me, as the negativity and the toxicity really started to shape me into someone that I didn't recognize, I liken it to like the water that drips on the rock.
Yeah.
Over time, year after year, what happens is that rock starts to take shape and change. And so that's what I found was happening to me. So over time, in order for me to survive in that environment where he was crazy jealous, over the top obsessive, I found myself getting jealous back.
Yes.
I found myself doing drive-bys his house to see, right? Like, he says he's home. Is he really?
Totally.
Right? Like, and I needed to be honest in this book about that, because again, going back to what are the things that are trapping us that maybe we don't realize, I don't beat myself up over it. I actually give myself tremendous grace that I didn't know better. It was literally a way to survive in a toxic dynamic. When someone's being jealous, be jealous back, right? It's a defense mechanism.
Yes.
Once I started to recognize I'm not proud of myself, I don't feel good about myself when I do this, that becomes the stepping stone into recognizing how do you change. As you start to focus on yourself, because you can't change them, as you start to focus on yourself, how you show up in that relationship, what you're accepting. Again, this isn't a blame game, but I definitely make sure that I look at myself. As I started to look at myself and see how I was showing up, the choices I was making, then I could start to change my behavior.
Yes.
You can't change them as much as you want to.
Yep.
And I spent years and years trying to change him. And I realized, wow, Lisa, no, you're the one that needs to change. The decisions you make needs to change. The choices you are making need to change. What you're accepting, your negotiables, the fact that you put him before you, all of this needs to change. And it has to start with you. And so once I started to realize that, I swore I would never be that person again. Yeah. And so once I was able to get myself out of the relationship, I spent probably a year going through, what do I want from a relationship? What is my value system? What are my morals? How do I want to show up? What does my future look like? What are my non-negotiables? And so by the time I met Tom, I'd already built my foundation that then he either was a house that was going to be built on the foundation or it doesn't fit. One or the other. But no way am I going to keep changing what my values and my negotiables are for anybody else. But it had to take the time to figure out what that was to me without someone else's input.
I'm so excited to read that. I feel like that's huge. What is one thing that's just really lighting you up right now as we end our conversation? Like, what is something that you're just like, yeah, this is really just lighting me up in this moment, whether it's personal work?
Well, what's interesting is, so my mum had a brain operation last year.
Yeah.
And she's in her 70s. And that was a reality to life again. That was actually why I ended up interviewing the death doula.
Wow.
Because I'm like, I'm so fearful of the thought of losing my mum.
Yeah.
And I'm such a busy person. Like, I do things a lot.
Course. Yeah.
But it's not necessarily, it doesn't allow me time to absorb the reality of life.
Yeah.
And so when I went to England and saw my mum for the very first time in my entire life, act like a child. She just had a brain operation. She couldn't feed herself. She couldn't go to the restroom. She was slurring. And that's when I'm like, fuck, have I got regrets? Have I spent the time that I really want with my mum? Have I asked her every question I've ever wanted to ask her? And so that really led me down to a path of like, the life you have. I'm not a religious person, so I definitely personally believe that this is the life you have. And so even if there is a God and there is a pearly gates waiting for me, I don't want to take the chance. I want to live my life right now as I can. And so going back to the regrets thing, how do I make sure that I pivot and change my life to serve me instead of me serving the life? And so I realized that was spending time with people that I really care about, reaching out to people that I care about on a random basis. So like we actually were talking about Mel Robbins before we started rolling. Like she's such a good friend of mine. And then this morning I was just randomly thinking about her. And so instead of just then moving on and being the doer, I literally picked up my phone and I left her a voice message. Hey, homie, just on my mind. Just want to let you know I love you. That's it. And so I just hung up.
Yeah.
Those moments now is really on my heart. And even the nurturing side of me. I don't have children, but I've got a massive part of me that wants to nurture. And so I want to fill that part of my heart up. And so I hopefully am about to get a new puppy. And so that becomes it's going to fill up my heart. And I want to make sure that I'm always putting my self-care first and what fills my heart up first, because I've just shown up so many times for other people. And I want to make sure that I can sustain showing up for other people when I'm 100 years old. And so for me to, no bullshit, what would it take for me to still want to show up and help other people when I'm 100 years old? Take care of myself now. And that means nurturing my soul. How do I nurture my soul? I write a list, and now that list is my gospel, and I just keep going back to that time and time again. So that's really what's on my heart right now.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And your mom's okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
the woman's
good.
a beast.
Wow.
Like she lost so the woman that said that she couldn't lose weight, I told you that's the woman that I fought for, waking up every morning for Quest. What I realized was Quest was amazing for the body, but if you don't believe you're worthy enough, you're not going to pick up a Quest bar.
It's everything.
And my mum didn't feel like she was worthy. So we became $1 billion company, and my mum was still morbidly obese, could literally barely walk 4 steps. And I want to see my mum live for as long as she possibly can. Like, I don't care about the looks. I just care about her health. And so I tried to throw money at the problem. She kept saying, I'm old. I can't. Me and my husband pivot. We sell Quest. We start Impact Theory. That becomes about the mind. My mom goes and loses 120 pounds in her late 60s and has kept it off for 7 years.
Wow.
And so now, going back to the operation, because she had already taken care of her health for so long, it was like they couldn't believe her healing. She healed so much. And then, in fact, 2 weeks ago, I surprised my mom, and my husband surprised his mom, and we took them away on a trip to Vegas. And I took my mom out and I just said, Mom, can you give me space to ask you all the questions I've always wanted to ask you, but been too shy or too embarrassed, or I haven't wanted to make you uncomfortable? She's like, absolutely. And I said, thank you. So we just sat there for literally 2 hours at the Hard Rock Cafe of all places in Vegas. And I just asked her every question I've ever wanted to ask her. And she was so receptive because I talk to her like I'm talking to you, right? It's like, Mom, I never want to have regrets. I don't ever want to have a false idea of this one story that you told me when I was 7 years old. And I kind of remember the story, and I know this is difficult for you to talk about because I'm talking about a divorce that you had with my dad. So like all of that is very hard for my mom to talk about. But I just said, I'd never want to not know. And again, I'm never trying to put you in a position that makes you uncomfortable, but if you can, please give me the space. I would love to know the truth of all of these things. And she just gave me the space. And, I think that really has helped me, again, take those stepping stones that I want to take in order for me to be able to serve in 60 years.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. My grandfather passed last year, and I did that in our last days. I was like, tell me about grandma, tell me about this, tell me about that. Like just getting everything. Cause I feel like when we're with family, we could just kind of go unconscious and we're just like, they're this person. I know them as this, they know me as this, but they're so complex and rich and they're not just your parent. They've had a whole life before you. And I love that.
When I gave my book to my dad, by the way, I was like, now Dad, there's a lot of stories in here, things you don't know. A lot of stories and stories about you, Dad, and stories about your daughter that you may not want to know, but I have to put them in. Like, again, I'm very goal oriented, and it's like, this book has to help people. And so in order for this to help people, I have to be very authentic and share stories that I'm utterly ashamed and embarrassed about, in order to show people you can still have these things that you're ashamed about, embarrassed about. You can talk about them and still freaking show up like a beast with confidence.
I love that. That's the magnetism too. When you're vulnerable like that, that's what magnetizes you. Like your relation, like it's like people can read about like the perfect story, but it's like always like the crunch that people are like, wow, tell me more about that. This has been so much fun. I'm so grateful you came.
Thank you for having me.
So grateful you came. Book is Radical Confidence. There's a new chapter. It's out now. It's stunning. Can't wait to read this tonight, but it's been so nice to have you on.
Thank you.
It's been beautiful. Impact Theory is the podcast.
Women of Impact.
Women of Impact. Impact Theory is your husband.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the name of our company. Yeah.
And then the relationship one.
Yeah, so we actually had a relationship theory show.
Okay.
We put it on pause for a year, but I'm trying to convince him.
I love that channel.
Oh, thank you.
I thought it was so good. Yeah.
I actually am like, maybe I start a petition to convince my husband.
Yes, you should.
But, so that may be the next step in our evolution. But again, we kind of like write out what are our priorities in the company, and then helping people in their relationships though is something that we just feel so strongly about, especially in today's society, dude.
Yeah, dude.
The amount of scary freaking things where it's like, I think it's 1 in 3 guys under the age of 30 aren't having sex.
Yeah.
Now because of like the way the world's changing,
and porn
women
and
porn and everything. Women are, not trusting men as much.
Yes.
Like it's just getting very messy.
Yes.
And so me and my husband feel it's our obligation to be very honest about the truth and about the truth about our dynamics and how we figure things out and how we work through things. So thank you. I will let him know as another person that signed the petition.
I signed, sealed, delivered. Okay, guys, we love you so much. I will see you on the next one. Bye. Bye.
Okay, you have heard the hype about CGMs, continuous glucose monitors, and y'all, I have to verify. I have learned so much about my body and my health and how my habits, lifestyle, nutrition, my workouts affect my blood glucose. I've also learned like what the blood glucose means and how it affects my mood and my energy and my sleep. And it's been so fascinating. At first, I was really overwhelmed by just learning all of this. I'm like, oh, better not to know. But no, it is better to know, and you're going to learn quick. Why? Because Veri is incredibly easy to use. VERI. It's a great tool to find personalized insights on what works best for your body, and truly like quiet any pressure you feel to hop on any diet trend, which might not be right for your body. So by pairing a continuous glucose monitor with an easy to use app, in just 14 days, you can understand how to break unhelpful habits and build new ones to improve your metabolic health through nutrition, exercise, sleep, and stress management. So for example, I have been learning that when I have my last meal is affecting my blood glucose. It affects my sleep, because if I'm having a blood glucose spike close to my bedtime, it's not going to work. So I've been really playing with having an earlier dinner. So an early dinner before I put the baby to bed, which sometimes is hard, but I'm trying to make it happen. And I'm making sure that those meals, which I got recommended in the app, are full of protein, and some complex carbohydrates, but lots of protein and veggies. And this really helps me to not have that intense glucose spike. It's been such a game changer. So I'm obsessed. What I love also about this sensor is that it's smaller than a lot of sensors that I've seen and used in the past. And also you only have to scan it once. So when I've used a CGM before, I had to scan it like every 8 hours, but this you only have to scan once. And the app picks up all of the information. Y'all, get on this train. Do it now. If you want to find out the right foods and habits for your body while improving your health, give Veri a shot with our exclusive $30 off code. The code is VSM-almost30. And check out veri.co, VERI.co. That is where you will get it all started. Use our code VSM-almost30, VSM-almost30 for $30 off at veri.co, VERI.co.
Thank you so much, Lisa Bilyeu. Again, the book is Radical Confidence. There's a new chapter out now, and the YouTube and podcast is Women of Impact.
Thanks for listening. Go to almost30.com to learn more about Almost 30. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Almost 30 Podcast. I'm on Instagram at Lindsay Simsick.
And I'm at It's Krista. It's ITSKRISTA. Love you guys so much. Have such a beautiful week. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.